Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I'm your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by my co-host, Lance LaDuke. We totally didn't forget to record an intro to this episode.
Not at all.
We totally did not get a message from Will Houchin going like, is there an intro to episode 175? I was like, well, I mean, not literally.
As in something you could edit onto the interview? No.
You mean like a physical thing that you could listen to or watch or manipulate somehow? No.
Right.
No.
Yeah, not that.
That's more of a concept. We know what we want to do, like artistically with the intro. This interview was great.
Darius Christian is really cool. Yeah, I didn't know him, and I'm glad I do. He's really cool.
Shout out to Reggie Chapman for putting him on our radar. Because that's who was like, you need to talk to my friend Darius. And it turns out, Reggie, you were right, because Darius's album is really good. Yes, and really creative. This is my favorite part about doing interviews, is getting to, like, I'd never spoken to him. We'd emailed a bunch, but I'd never spoken to him, and then got to like really pick his brain on his process and on his approach and on what inspires him, and like that's cool. It's like really neat.
And I hadn't seen it I hadn't seen it while we had done the interview, but since then I went in and watched that him creating a tune in 30 minutes while he's holding on to his dog, which is so cool. It was really awesome.
We talk about it. It's fascinating. It's really fascinating. Yeah, very cool. So guess what I am doing in 2 days? I've already started the process.
I'm guessing it's not your taxes. I already know.
No. I'm getting a colonoscopy. Yes, because they recommended 45 now, and I'm 46, which is not ideal because I should have done it last year, but I wasn't really doing much of anything. Anytime I put on pants for my entire 45th year, my dog wagged and stretched because she knew it meant she was going out, because it's a true story. It's the only thing I put on pants for, was to take the dog out. But I am getting a colonoscopy, which, if you are a male over the age of 45 and you have not had one, you should do it. And you know what's going to be tomorrow, Lance, is I am going to go an entire day without any coffee.
I see. Now
that's going to be a show.
I would want to be a fly on the wall only. I would say, I'd want to be around to see that. I don't want to be around to see that.
You'd want to be a fly
with you.
You'd want to be a fly on the wall next to an open window.
Exactly.
So you can get out. And then I also was not able to get a morning appointment, because when I called, a month and a half ago and said I'd like a colonoscopy, they were like, it's going to be like few months. They're like, people, do you want morning? And I was like, probably, but when's your next available morning? It was like months out. And then they had this 1:30 one on Wednesday, and I was like, okay, I'll take it. So it's gonna be a long couple days.
Colon health, Andrew, it's very important. I've often told people you're like the Katie Couric of tuba.
It is very, very, very important, and it's pretty amazing that I get to have like 3 unpleasant days and then get like definitive knowledge about whether I have, or at least definitive of, wait, this is, we need to really investigate this further. It's amazing where technology has brought us. And so, yeah, get a colonoscopy if you have not had one, because, we need you around, whoever you are. Thank you to Parker Mouthpieces, speaking of colonoscopies, for providing the hosting.
He's going to be real happy with the 2 setups in a row.
Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke Model Euphonium mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I believe that Mr. Parker turned 45 this past July. So I think
you know what that means.
I'm actually going to I'm going to bother him via text as soon as we hang up, see if he's had one yet. What does that mean, Lance?
That means he needs to get a colonoscopy.
Yeah, that's
You could email him, I guess.
Yeah. you could go to parkermelodies.com and email him and ask if he has had his procedure yet, because he is. We make fun of him a lot. Because he's a sponsor. That's what we do with our sponsors. If you'd like us to make fun of you, just pay us money regularly, and we'll do it. But he's one of my oldest and dearest friends in the world, and we definitely need him around a long time. So, and check out our YouTube channel. We're now over 500 subscribers, which is
How about that?
Which is pretty good since it hasn't even been around that long. Cruising towards 600, so you can check us out. Links in the show notes. You're gonna love this interview with Darius, and so yeah, let's get to it. Without further ado, let's get to the conversation that we had with trombone player, producer, just all around creative person, Darius Christian.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more content by the Brass Junkies, just click on the like and subscribe button. You'll have an opportunity to see some of the greatest brass players in the world, and Andrew and me.
Today on the Brass Junkies, we are joined by someone who does enough things that if I were to list all the things that he did, it would take me like a minute and a half. But a trombone player, which is how he made our brass radar. He's a producer, he's a songwriter, he's an entrepreneur. He's just an all-around badass, and his name is Darius Christian. Darius, how are you?
You're too kind, and I'm very happy to be here and very happy to chat with you, Andrew.
would have been funny if he was like, "I am a badass. Thank you for noticing." Yeah,
expert
everything you said. I forgot a avid video gamer.
Yeah, there you go.
Medalist in the luge.
So let's start on the trombone side. By the way, Darius has toured and recorded with a long list of very, very famous names, which we will get to. You can find all of it at DariusChristian.com, of course. And actually, we're going to circle back to this brand new album that came out today as we were recording this. So when this is released, like 1 week ago, and it's called Scaryus, and it's available on Bandcamp and everywhere. Follow the links; it's really great. So check that out. But we're going to circle back to that. I want to talk to you about how you started on the trombone. Like, what is your origin story there?
Yeah, I wish it were like Spider-Man, where I got bit by like some radioactive bug or something, or even Venom, some like alien parasite. But maybe that did happen. I don't know which came first, but I remember the visceral experience being in the car with my dad, and the Aaron Copland, one of the Aaron Copland suites came on. Which one?
Appalachian Spring.
Yep.
Appalachian Spring. So like classic. And it was arranged for full ensemble with brass, and I just remember this moment of like, the Zolly where you're zooming in towards the subject, you're zooming out towards the subject. Okay, film nerds. So like classic film moments where like you're on a cart, you're physically moving towards your subject, but zooming out, and you get this like whoa, like expansive but moving closer feeling.
Focus
It's a great
pull.
trick. The focus pull.
Yep, that's what that's called.
That's what it is. That happened to me. I got like rocked in the jaw hearing brass instruments.
Cool.
And it was just that moment of like, what is this? What am I hearing? What is resonating? What is all that stuff? Way before, any understanding. And then around fourth grade, we were able to pick an instrument we wanted to start with. And the first thing I saw was trumpet, and absolutely wanted to play that. But the teacher was like, listen up, buddy, there's already 10 trumpet players. We need somebody else to play something else. And trombone was like the last instrument that was available. And I grabbed it, and that's it. Stuck with it. Loved it.
Wow.
So stuck with it, loved it. Like stuck with it, like loved it right out of the gate, and stuck with it right out of the gate, and just was like, this is the thing.
I think had an immediate connection with it. And I think that sort of trumpet envy, perhaps it like was quieted for many, many years. But I think ultimately drove me to like the sound that I really admired was trumpet, because my first band teacher, first like private instructor, was a trumpet player. So he was teaching me brass pedagogy from the perspective of a trumpet player, like warm-ups and slurs. And so I always kind of envied the buttons a little bit. And I think in terms of tone and articulation, always envied the clarity that like a valve player would get. And I think in some ways I've always been inspired by that, but I've never picked up a valve instrument. I've never played euphonium, or like I had a trumpet, but just couldn't. I never wanted to jump over. I was committed to the slide.
Well, do you feel like that informed how you approached the instrument? Like, did you set out to make this thing be as clean and clear with a slide as you heard folks who move buttons did?
Absolutely. I also feel a little bit of shame in that, because for many, many years, I didn't want to do like the greasy trombone thing, like the classic, like, which is, like the classic, like, or even like the New Orleans, like art form that is like trombone playing in New Orleans. I think maybe it was a mixture of being intimidated or I think my ear was yearning towards more of the clarity of like a Freddie Hubbard type of tone.
Yeah.
Which got me really inspired for that clarity and articulation side, which then informed my like glissando and like the stank element of faking that, which I still feel like I'm faking, but just like the nasty side, like the grease.
If you want to hear what it really sounds like, I'll play for you sometime. The faking of it. I got the faking of it.
Hey man, I'm right there.
You need to name your next album "Stank Fake."
Stank Fake.
That's pretty good.
Whoa.
You're welcome.
Here
That's
first.
free. That's free.
Whoa, and it will feature all of us. It'll be like a small chamber piece that then gets into like some. We'll take it to Zappa World. We'll just go nuts.
Careful what you wish for.
There you go.
Let's do it. I'm not kidding. Let's go.
All right.
I saw the Zappa band live here in DC last month. So
what?
They were really, really good. They opened for King Crimson, and the whole show was unbelievable. Yeah, it was special. So Valve Envy Lance is a euphonium / trombone player, although his home base is euphonium, and which is the easiest of the brass instruments.
Home base is actually slash.
Slash?
Just the slash. Yeah, I wish.
Well, so you have, this is awesome. We're on the same wavelength, because you have mentioned Copeland and you've mentioned Freddie Hubbard, like in the first 10 minutes, which is kind of like spanning, a lot of my interests. How did Freddie Hubbard, can you talk a little bit more about how Freddie Hubbard directly influenced you?
Yeah. I mean, just I discovered Freddie Hubbard relatively towards the later, I don't know, pretty early on, I guess, like late high school, mid college. And at that point, I just skyrocketed my appreciation and like deep interest in improvising with clarity and aggression and tone and just heat, that like heat factor. And I gotta say, I was listening to trumpet players like way more than I was trombone players. Not to bash any of the trombone players, but I don't know what it was. It was like maybe sort of an identity crisis or confusion early on, stemming back from like taking trumpet lessons on trombone, which I think fueled it in a cool way. I still have deep appreciation for like the Wycliffes and the Joshua Roseman and like Robin Eubanks, of course, like that blew my mind. But yeah, Freddie Hubbard, I think, ignited a different switch. Partially like almost like chivalrous, like love, where you're like, you really want this thing that you'll never be able to achieve. This like, I mean, some people can totally do that, obviously, but like, not me. And so I'm always like striving to, like hearing those lines. I'm like, how is that so clean and ripping, yeah. But musical over everything, not just Shredsville. Because I don't know how you guys feel, but shredding for the sake of it is like, all right, I get it.
That can keep my attention for for especially if it's live for a few minutes, where I can be really impressed at how well someone operates a trumpet or guitar or trombone or drum set. But I get bored really fast with just shredding. Yeah, really fast. It's just because it's an intellectual impressed with, like, oh wow, they, he, she, they put in a lot of time on that, and it's like, oh, they're able to match articulations at that volume a lot better than I can, or this, that is, I kind of analyze and can apply it to how I could make my own playing better. But if it's not speaking here, then I get bored pretty fast.
It's like watching a CrossFit competition.
Right.
Oh, cool that you can do that.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you.
Where do you find these competitions?
On ESPN 9. You got to dig way down the thing.
Wow, they're like televised. I had no idea.
That means I have not enough going on. Oh yeah, sure. Wow, that's a lot of push-ups.
Hey, I mean cornhole is televised now.
There you go.
So
it's true.
Hey, respect.
So why not shredding? It should be like the Arpeggio Olympics.
Exactly.
And next up in the Phrygian competition.
That's pretty great. I don't think I'd place, to be honest.
I don't think I'd qualify. I wouldn't even be there. I'd be like, yeah, he tried. No, thank you, tuba man. We're good.
Yeah.
You just said something about Freddie, about how he taught you to improvise with clarity and aggression. I really, and you made clear that it was musical, but can you talk maybe about your own? Because I think all of us, if I may speak on your behalf, like all of us when we first start to improvise, there's some question marks, right? Because it's like it's not in front of you, and your improv, whether it's with spoken word or trombone or producing or whatever, there's a lot of exclamation points, and so there's like an aggression there. Can you talk about like how that evolution happened?
Yeah, there's actually a moment that there are a few moments. I think part of it is just like innate angst and sort of like that like teenage angst songwriter that I've always had. Like typically my music kind of has like perhaps a darker element or yearning or sense of like seeking resolution or answer seeking type of energy. And then mixed with improvising, I like to engage with stories and like raising questions and trying to answer my own questions. But it actually came to a point where I was doing some improvising and I was just really, there's a tentative energy when you're not sure of what you're doing and you're doubting your skills and you're doubting whatever. And you just have to get to a certain point where it's like, it doesn't matter what you can and cannot do in the instrument. It's just a matter of what idea you're projecting and committing to it. The same way that an actor would commit to a script, or like an orator just like leans into whatever they're saying or thinking. And it doesn't always need to be like, bah! But sometimes it does need to get there. It does need to get to like a distorted, blown out, maybe not blown out, but like color and saturation of tone or, and I was actually touring in a band called Red Barat years ago, which is an amazing brass band out of Brooklyn that combines like Punjabi, Pakistani, Indian, like musical ideas and melodies and harmonies with psychedelic, very King Crimson-esque Brooklyn brass band. Really cool band. They're on, we did like a KEXP performance you could check out. But that band is still thriving. It's had like a long history of members coming in and out to do their things. And I was on tour, and one of my really, really good friends, this was a moment that kind of tested our friendship on the road. I was kind of approaching the mic in these solos, like very, like just kind of using the mic, kind of like not more of like a softer, not as aggressive tone. Like I wasn't matching the context of the music in some ways. And it led to actually a really intense argument with my buddy, Stephen Duffy, who's a great brass player. He goes by the name Duffbone. And he'll, you know, if he were here, he would start laughing because he knows the story. He basically was like, yo, man, you got to play louder. Just like Ray Mason. He like just calls me out. It compares me to like an amazing trombonist. Ray Mason is incredible. Like a guy I went to school with, and now is like, I mean, he's the trombone on Uptown Funk. He's worked with Taylor Swift. He's worked with like all the names, right? So part of me was like, man, what are you, I'm doing, but I'm me. I'm trying to. And it led to this argument. And
your face is stupid.
Yeah, you know, and Duffy and I just like went at it. I remember we were in San Francisco too, and he was like, "Do you want to go get lunch?" And I was like, "No."
Lunch is stupid.
I don't want to get lunch with you.
I don't eat anymore.
And I think I went to like the shop right next door, 'cause, like, you know, Sprinter van tour, or not even, it was like a minivan tour, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a moment where Duffy kind of schooled me in a way of like, you know, in order to play with aggressiveness, I guess someone has to aggressively tell you that you got to play with aggressiveness. And it kind of kicked off this thing. So like for the rest of the tour, all of my solos were like so loud and like like angry, spiteful. So long story short, I think it is a color that is like required, like, and I'm sure you both are playing repertoire that requires it in certain moments. You know, it's not like the default sound, but
Right. Yeah.
how do you feel when you're confronted with like super loud playing?
You got to go, right? I mean, if it's time, then it's time.
Yeah,
Because it's all about it's about the two things that you've said, which is about, am I communicating the thing that needs to be communicated, and am I providing enough contrast in my playing that people can experience a wider range of emotion? So if it's all just mezzo whatever, then fine. But without that, then this doesn't make as much sense. Without the extreme louds, then the extreme soft doesn't either.
We were talking about our former, he's not our former mentor. He's still my mentor. He's just not alive anymore. So, yeah, our mentor who is former.
Too soon.
Sam Palafian, before we started. And one of my favorite Sam quotes is, dynamics are our number one tool as musical storytellers. And and then reminded of another mentor who's still my mentor and still very much alive. His name is Rex Martin, and he used to whenever I would play anything in a lesson or coaching or whatever, and it was like with an unintentional middle dynamic, he would always refer to that as mezzo nothing, as the dynamic level, where it's like where there's absolutely a time to intentionally play with a right in the middle of your dynamic range. But when the loud kind of creeps down to the middle and the soft kind of creeps up to the middle, and it's just, and the same goes with tone color, right? Especially if you're improvising, where it's just kind of, or the articulation, it all just kind of can go to the middle, which is like, fine, that's nice, but that's not really what speaks to me as a playing next to you or sitting in the audience, is I want you to take some chances.
Yeah, and also, yeah, playing next to you, like, we're directional instruments. And there's also that like connection between our sound output and what the audience is hearing, because we'll never know what it sounds like in front of us, which is crazy. You know, we have like monitoring and microphones to help with that, but that's such an important point of mezzo whatever, mezzo fine, whatever.
He never said it as a compliment. Yeah, it was always like, oh, nice, nice mezzo nothing there, Hitz. Like, well, okay, fair enough.
And what I hear with that is like intention. Like,
That's right.
if it is super soft, like making it super soft, but also it can still be aggressive, which is the coolest part. When something is soft and like super like not rushing but driving, and like that's the sweet.
There was a guy that Andrew and I worked with in Boston Brass named Chris Castellanos, who's still with the band, French horn player, and he used to talk about pianos and pianissimos as baby fortes.
Whoa.
And that was like just a beautiful imagery, I thought, because it's not about the decibel level; it's about the intensity. Like, what is it that you're trying to say, and how do you get this point across? It just happens to be quieter.
Whoa.
Hey Lance, speaking of baby fortes, you want to tell us about the Pappert people?
You know, the Pappert people are some of the most wonderful people on the planet. The Mary Pappert School of Music at Duquesne University in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where it's actually both of those things today. It is both sunny and beautiful. They are longtime sponsors of the Brass Junkies, and we want to encourage you to click on the link in the show notes below where you can, or maybe it's to the side, could be above. I don't mean to imply that it's below. It's definitely not emotionally below. We feel like they're on an equal par with what we're doing. Anyway, click on the link and you can find out who teaches, what you can get involved in terms of ensembles, what other opportunities there are. There's a bunch of really fantastic stuff going on there. And a very, very, very special thanks to Jim, Baby Forte Nova, for making it possible. Do you know Nova? Do you know Jim Nova?
I don't.
He does these, like, you know, he'll
But
take
I'd like to.
a part of the Star Wars soundtrack and record it with 6,500 overdubs of him playing trombones from whatever the highest pitched trombone. He has one that's an octave higher than that, and then he has this one that it's a double, quadruple contrabass trombone where he actually has it hooked up to a Roomba, and the Roomba extends the slide because it goes too far for him to. Anyway, something like that.
He's
With the GoPro on the Roomba.
Yeah.
And a kitten dressed like a duck.
If there are any trombone, in fact, let's put it in the show notes, Lance. If there are any trombone players who have no idea who the hell we are or Jim Nova, who are here for Darius, you should check out Jim's. He's in the Pittsburgh Symphony, and he does all of these Star Wars videos. They're really
They're really pretty amazing.
The writing, the playing, like everything, it's brilliant. So yeah, I don't like saying nice things about him because he's a friend, but
Of course.
you should check them out. I want to ask you about, you have played, we teased this at the beginning, but you have either recorded with or toured with Rihanna, Miley Cyrus, Macklemore, Lauryn Hill, which is incredible, Adele, Solange, Gwen Stefani. I guess my first question is this, like, how does one crack into that like level of play? You know, how did you get your first call for an artist that was like at that level in the pop world?
Yeah. Okay, so it's just a measure of showing up to perform in public and doing it at the highest level you can, and being cool and as kind and as laid back and prepared as possible, whether it's a $50 gig at Blue Note at midnight or if it's a $50 gig for like an artist who needs a horn section. There's a time and place to do those sorts of jobs. Especially if you're starting out, you kind of just basically, you gotta put your foot out there. You gotta put your name out there. You gotta show up and deliver, and I think it comes down to that, partially. In particular with Gwen Stefani, I was doing a performance with a really great bass player, who's actually the son of one of the jazz crusaders. His name is Nick. And hold on, why am I spacing? Pretty sure it's Nick.
You want us to go back to making fun of Jim Nova? We can. We've already got one of those, like...
That's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Especially because we gave him that really nice plug. I feel like we could really tee off on him for another 5 minutes and I wouldn't feel bad.
No, this is bad. I need to know this. This gentleman basically called me to do this gig. Come on, man. Why am I spacing here?
You're hanging out with two old dudes. It's contagious.
I'm going to get back to his name, but
All right.
my brain is foggy. I did a performance at Blue Note Jazz Club with a great bass player. And no one was there. It was like 2 a.m. or 1 a.m, but somebody happened to record a YouTube video. The artist put up a YouTube video on his channel, and he's friends with the current musical director for the Eagles, who then was like, we need a trombone player to sub for the current trombone player for Gwen. And that was it. He saw a video that a friend posted and was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, let's go with him. And I had no rehearsal with Gwen. I showed up. I had learned the show from a full video recording, full audio. There were no charts or anything. But I was doubling vocals and keys. I'm actually only playing like trombone on 6 songs out of like 26 songs in that show. Which is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nick Sample. His name is Nick Sample, by the way. Joe Sample's son.
Oh,
Nick
cool.
Sample, bass player. Yeah, and that kind of evolved that way. And then working with Macklemore was another just like word of mouth referral. So just a lesson to myself and other people, like those moments when you're in a situation with musicians, it's just a good opportunity to be cool and be enjoyable to work with, because it typically will yield some results. I'm sure you guys have experienced similar, happenings in your worlds by just being cool, or have you ever had moments where you regretted not being cool and felt,
I mean, Lance has, but yeah, but it's not my story to tell. No, it's if anybody is young who's listening to this, it is so important, because the reason that Darius is on the show today is because Reggie Chapman, who we interviewed, he recommended Darius and said, like, Darius is amazing. And then like he started to say what I was like, and as he's telling me, I'm like Googling. I was like, oh, we got to get this guy, right? But Reggie would never have said you need to talk to Darius if there was any chance that Darius was going to be a complete pain in the ass. Like, there's no chance, because not that I would like never speak with Reggie again. It's not like that would be some like like forever damnable offense, but that would I'd just kind of be like, that's weird, because that guy was not pleasant, right? So it just seems weird, because it's not like we're like lacking people to interview. There's just so many people out there doing so much cool stuff. And so in an unofficial way, Reggie put himself on the line by recommending you. You talked to you for 5 minutes, and like there was no risk there, right? I mean, like, I'm sure the worst version of you is still very pleasant especially to strangers, just like Lance and just like myself, at this point. But it's so important. You have to be a good person, no matter how much you can kill showing up and playing with Gwen Stefani without rehearsals. There are other people who can do the same thing or almost the same thing who aren't a pain in the ass, and they're going to get called every time.
Absolutely. And those moments when you really just want to look at someone and just unleash all of the words that you just really want to say, but that would be a good time to journal or scream into a I don't know, a pillow or something. Or just like it doesn't help. And I've learned the hard way, honestly. I've had moments where I've like maybe said, I don't know, maybe I have in the past been like short or like not as open and warm with someone on a gig.
Sure. We all
like
have.
A gig,
Yep.
And I think that's tricky if we are to sustain a career and build the roster. So yeah.
Is Darius? Why isn't Darius eating lunch with us? Oh, he's in the minivan screaming into a pillow. He's busy right now. I have a rule that if I'm going to say anything that's even remotely contentious to anybody, then I try to start this sequence. Does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? And does this need to be said by me right this second? I almost never get 3 yeses. Sometimes it's like a yes, this needs to be said to Darius, and then yes, I am either the only person or the best person in the world to say it to him. But then the right now is almost always like ego in terms of the timing. And like if I tell you tomorrow or in a week or when we're face to face instead of text, whatever, I've never had to apologize for anything I haven't said before. And that has just come with age. Because when I was young, I would, if you had introduced that sequence to me, I'd be like, that's a good idea for you. And I was like, and I just would have, not that I ran my mouth all the time, but it kind of comes with age, just the wisdom to shut up.
That is wisdom. That's a serious skill set because not everybody can do that, right? And like, yeah, it makes me think of Sam Harris. There's an interview that he did on Jason Bateman, Will Arnett's, and Sean. What's Sean's name from Will and Grace?
Oh, Sean. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and he talks about this, about just like, yeah, usually the best means is time, but acknowledging how you feel is great, and communicating that idea. And how this relates to brass playing, I guess, helps us continue to play brass with other people by not losing our cool. Because sometimes it sucks. Sometimes showing up to rehearsal can be annoying, or showing up to getting there, the work around the music can be a pain.
Well, and just remembering everybody got here somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, into this room today, and then here, like through life, and nobody's had an easy road. The easiest road anybody had still had bumps in it.
Mm-hmm.
And any gig that you're playing on is like important to somebody. Not really important. There's a good chance if you're not feeling it, it's more important to someone who's on that gig. And so you just got to have some empathy for them. And if you book us a trio and it's like, and it's a little bit of a what show, then it's like, it's not like you like called Lance and I like knowing that it was going to be a mess, and we're like, yeah, come on, it's like, well, no, you've been put on the spot. It's like, so I can like point out to you what you already know, which is that the gig is kind of a hot mess, or I can just smile and try and help you in any way I can. And you combine that with playing the trombone like you do, and then people call you all the time. That's how it works.
There's another part too, which is you kind of just mentioned in passing that you played trombone on 6 of the tunes. You played keyboard. You were tracking vocals as well. So how is it that you develop those other skills which make you more marketable?
I think that's the beauty of the brass. Like, come on, like the brass junkies. Like I really believe in the power of the brass instrument, because you have to be able to sing and hear the ideas that are on the page or just your playing. And I think that's the beauty of the brass family that separates us from most musicians. I'll say it, because we're awesome and duh.
And modest.
And we're the best, okay? But
maybe you should have been a trumpet player, Darius.
But seriously, we're the coolest. It's the coolest sound. It's but that being said, it does lend, like what we do lends itself to, and not even lends itself, it requires intonation. It requires micro adjustments and listening, especially on trombone. I think of violin being very difficult. Like all the string instruments are very difficult, but the element of singing and having that, like the sound very much so coming from it's very close to the vocal cords. I feel like it just lends itself to singing. And just thinking of, if you can sing it, you can play it, that mentality. New York Philharmonic trombone player, greatest of all time, would say the same thing. He came to Towson and did a master class. And that's what it comes down to. Singing through any piece and doing it well, you'll then be able to play that part. Keyboarding, the new verb, the new activity. I'm pretty late to, and I feel like I picked that up as I was doing more production, working in Logic, and then moving over to Ableton.
I see.
Working through like MIDI instruments and then programming different sounds and patches required me to just feel a little bit more comfortable with piano, but my skills are still pretty rudimentary in comparison to, I'm sure like you guys play around the piano, can actually play pieces and stuff.
No, I use it as a teaching tool. Yeah, I just use it as a teaching tool. So yeah, it's
totally.
just for getting students to buzz things and that kind of thing. So
Awesome.
You were just talking about Joe Alessi. Are you talking about the Towson masterclass that he gave in 2011?
Were you there?
I was there.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was there.
Well, in fact, did you play?
I don't know if I played.
Okay.
Yeah. No. I was terrified of that man, so I just sat there. Yeah.
Because he's a Yankees fan?
Yeah. I actually have I have like 60 quotes from that masterclass that are up on my website. So
no way.
If you go to andrewhitz.com/quotes, then then I've got it's like it's a 3-parter. It was an awesome class.
Wow, that is so wild. You were there.
Yeah, I was there. I came up just for that. That was before I procreated, so I was able to do things like he. I'm trying to think if he texted me to tell me that he was going to be there, or if it was I somehow found out the day of, and then I was like, wait, I got to go. I mean, it was it was an hour away, but yeah, I came up. That was an awesome class.
And Dr. Mannix was there at the time, I believe.
Yep, that is correct.
Yeah. Totally. And I think that inspired a lot. And then honestly, I had a curiosity for singing kind of before I took the trombone seriously. I was singing in a rock band in high school where I would sort of do a Sublime-esque Dave Matthews Band thing where I would sing lead and then play like trombone parts with the guitar player, put the horn down and sing lead, kind of like
That's
this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Neat. Wow.
Did you grow up in Maryland?
I grew up in Maryland. I used to play shows at the Record Theater in Towson as a kid, and then like the Otto Bar, and then Ram's Head, like just sort of around the area, and
very cool.
And then got very serious about trombone and decided that songwriting was stupid. But then realized that I forgot the thing that was inspiring me, and kind of had to remember why I started, and now putting everything together. Yeah.
Wow. There's a lesson in there for all of us, which no matter where you are on your journey, even Lance and I, which I'll just say we're maybe a little beyond, we're a little more advanced in our journeys than you are, but just like sometimes
chronologically, not accomplishment.
Sorry, that's what to be clear, that's what I meant. I meant we're older. Yeah, we're more advanced. Our artistic voices are a little bit more mature than yours. That's not what I was saying. But
does this need to be said?
That we can
my time is up here.
By you.
I'm done.
Does this need to be said by you right now?
Actually, his buddy hired me, the guy who told him to play louder. We're not even recording this. This is
an intervention.
I'm just trying to tell you that you really...
It's a volume intervention.
Yeah, this isn't a rehearsal, Darius. This is the thing. You got to really get moving here.
Meanwhile, Duffy's just sending me like a text like...
But we can all make assumptions. Like when it sounds like you made it, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you made an assumption that if you were going to take the trombone seriously, whatever that meant, that the songwriting had to go either on the back burner or off of the stove completely, which is that's just a narrative, right? We've all got those, right? It's like totally not true necessarily, right? I mean, turns out you can take the trombones and songwriting seriously at the same time, which is literally what your career is right now. And we got to be careful we don't make those assumptions.
Yeah, and a lot of that I've mentioned fear a few times was just totally hiding behind fear, which honestly kept me from producing and held me back. Held me back might be harsh, but for years after finishing grad school and living in New York and like hustling to pay rent, and as the gigs were coming, I had my little production set up, and I'd come home from a gig and just like look at my monitors and just like roll over or just like do anything but that. Mm-hmm. When really, I really wanted to just learn how to record my own part, like basic fundamental things that I feel like through the pandemic, we've all probably had to harness and tap into a lot more. Clearly, we're all, we're here virtually doing this, which is awesome.
Yes, it is.
But I wonder, like, did you have fear or this lingering idea, like, I really want to start a podcast? Was there a moment where you're like, but I can't do that? Like, did the unknowns prohibit you from starting for a while, or did you just sort of jump in?
We're not smart enough to be afraid. We just started.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's OG status.
I don't deal with fear because I lack any semblance of self-awareness. So it's like,
you're
literally,
gifted,
literally
my friend.
Incapable of. No, we have a very specific, actually, answer to that, which is that we recorded our first interview with our former Boston Brass colleague J.D. Shaw, and then we sat on it for over a year, like. And it wasn't, there was no part of that where I was like, "Hey, Lance, I'm too nervous to release this," or that he said the same to me. But like, and we were both very busy because everybody's busy. But like, we sat on it, yeah. Which there was some level of fear there because until someone hears your new album, which by the way is called Scaryus, which is available on Bandcamp and any other number of places online. Like, they can't possibly think that it sucks if they haven't heard it yet. As soon as you put it out in the world, then all of a sudden I have the ability to either tell you or just the whole internet, like, hey, this Darius, he's got a new album. It's terrible, right? And so, and also have the ability to say it's great, it's wonderful. It's like, tell everybody I know about it. But the safe thing is to just never share it with anybody, right? Or never start the podcast or never learn how to produce or never do any of that stuff. But then where are we, right? Yeah, you gotta get over it, which is hard.
Ship it.
Yeah. Exactly.
I want to ask you about your album, but first I keep forgetting to tell Andrew. Andrew, did you know I forgot to mention this? Houchin Horns aims to spread the joy of music through providing the highest level of products, services, and resources to the brass playing community. Did I tell you that?
No, I didn't know that. Can you tell me more?
What's that about?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. See, they have free domestic shipping on all new items, excluding sheet music, and free domestic returns on new instruments and mouthpieces when you order online at houchinhorns.com. They have a 15-day money-back guarantee with free shipping on all new instruments, and that's a repeat of the one before. Houchin Horns stocks the finest makes of brass instruments, including Bach, Conselmer, Eastman and Shires, Engelbert Schmidt, Paxman, Tyne, Yamaha, among many others, but I'm not going to list those. You can browse the extensive news and resources page at houchinhorns.com. Browse for great pedagogical info, articles, interviews, videos, and events. You can watch over 200 unique videos on Houchin Horns' YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Houchin Horns. And before I forget, if you enter the promo code Junkies at online checkout, you will receive 10% off your purchase from houchinhorns.com. Some limitations apply. Very special thanks to Houchin Horns for making that possible. Andrew, I'm so sorry that I forgot to tell you that.
I'm glad that you specified there was a forward slash in that URL and
Yes.
not a backslash. Yeah,
well, it could be a vertical slash.
Or it could be the guitarist from Guns N' Roses who we were talking about.
Musical
before.
slash. Yeah.
You want to talk? What were the words that you used before for talking about the about improv? Clarity and aggression. Slash from Guns N' Roses. Holy moly! Like with the tone, the articulating, all of it. It's like, yeah, like Freddie Hubbard, but completely different, but like same thing. Where it's just there's a lot there. So enough about Slash.
Scaryus.
Enough about Freddie Hubbard. Let's talk about Darius Christian here. Tell us about this new album. How did you get the inspiration for it? And then just, tell us a little bit about it.
Oh man, so this album came just to the front of my brain. I've had a nagging feeling for so long to release an album, and very, very proud to say that since like 2019, something clicked, something shifted in my brain where I was aware of perhaps what the trajectory of like a touring musician looks like, and how I kind of want to split the difference a little bit. I don't want to just be living on the road, and I don't want to be gone for months. I want to be with my lady and my dog, and be in the house in a very healthy way, not always gone. So, but again, I was running away from the fear of producing. So, at the core, I love songwriting, and for years I was working on material and releasing singles and sharing things and doing solo shows, and it's such a blast. It's hard work, but it's just like the meaningful work, the passionate work, doing your own thing. And so this is just another extension of a brand new body of work that basically started in the pandemic. Like, right, we got a call. I was with Gwen Stefani's crew. We landed in the Dominican Republic to play a festival, and that day it was like, Tom Hanks has COVID, the world is over. And everyone went home. They shipped us back. It was lockdown, and just I basically would write 2 to 3 songs a day for about a year. And another friend of mine, a songwriter named Dan Kaplan, who's in UK, platinum songwriter, really amazing. He's just had a lot of success. He was just like, dude, write a song every day, period. Finish it. Stop thinking about it. Stop thinking about revisions. Stop sitting on it. Most of them, they might suck. Just go. Just do it. And not only was that immensely therapeutic, but it just honed the chops. I'm sure you guys feel this, like, production chops as a brass player are a little bit different than live show chops, but there is an intensity of like playing it correctly. Yeah. And you don't want to get into like overdub comp world where you're like, oh, I missed that one note, let me get that. I kind of like to just get the part, lay it down, and basically, yeah, I just started writing songs, and looking back, I realized I've written like 175 songs or musical cues and ideas since the pandemic started. Like,
wow.
And some of the songs and ideas had stronger identities and and features, and they started to take form and take shape. And within the last year, I wrote these pieces that are on this album.
Wow.
Well, it's a couple directions I'm interested in going. So do you prefer one method of playing over the year? I really like recording, and I'm an old fart now, and I've performed like lots, and I feel very fortunate about that. Not that I wouldn't perform more, but recording is way more interesting to me. It's like much more of a mental challenge.
Absolutely. I love being in the zone where you're playing and you're recording, and you kind of even, there's the ad nauseum recording where you're just like recording takes and takes and delete most of it and then use just like one thing at the end, or the first idea. Usually the first or second take is usually the energy. But then just the coloring, like recording trombone parts, layering them so that they sound like a synthesizer, and layering it with synthesizers and side chaining all that to the kick drum, and then just mixing the trombone in a way that's pleasing, because EQing brass instruments for many producers and engineers, I'm sure you've had to explain how you want the tone of your instrument in the studio or live, right? And that's another thing. I feel like brass musicians make incredible engineers, looking at Quincy Jones, and there are many great producers who play brass instruments. So yeah, this is where I start to freak out and get nerdy, because I love the production world. Yeah.
Freak out, it's all good.
Yeah.
So here's a question that a sort of related question, because you talked about, so you have all these musical ideas, some which are more or less, so some are more amorphous, some are more meatier. I don't know what word you used. Can you think of a particular tune from the album where you kind of remember how it started and what the progression was to bringing it to life?
Yeah, the beauty of this album is most of these ideas had that sort of like candlestick, like magic hour, like deep yearning to finish this idea because I knew it was a story. The first track, for example, Where Do I Go, is this feeling of like being lost, searching for an answer and searching for a body for it to live in, the soul of the song. And I remember just like picking up the bass and like some chordal ideas came to me and like layering them and then just layering percussion parts, and a melody came, and then a vocal part came, and then sort of a spoken word element came, rather effortlessly. While a song like Black Skin, which is on the album, kind of came from a moment of deep discomfort. I was playing with the Harrisburg Symphony Orchestra, the Harrisburg Symphony, like a jazz ensemble, in the midst of like peak election time. Here I am, like not middle-aged, but like young black man walking through Harrisburg, and there's like a Proud Boys super pro-Trump rally. Jeez. And just in the midst of like goo, right? And that song took probably a full year to finish because I just to vocalize what I was feeling, and in that moment took a lot of energy. So some songs were really quick, and some just took a lot of time to tell the story.
And
Wow.
And do you write? So you started that the Where Do I Go started with a bass line. Do you start?
Yeah.
Do you write from all of your instruments, or do you tend to gravitate towards a particular instrument for sketches?
Yes, I kind of do start with a sound. I start with a really clear groove or feeling, and it typically will start in the form of like a voice memo, or I'll grab an instrument and start, a line will emerge from it. But it typically, again, if you hear it, you can play it. So I may come up with a bass line on the trombone that I'll then translate to the bass, or there's a synth part that I going through some of my sounds, I start to lock into a groove and kind of go from there. So yes, I do start with one sonic space and kind of sit with it. And then in terms of orchestrating an arrangement, we'll then sort of spread things out and say this part feels like the moment, the biggest part, or this feels like the build, and then connecting the dots with production and little sonic tricks, or honestly using the trombone as a trigger, using the trombone through guitar effects and pedals and pitch shifting in moments just to create a new sound with the instrument.
A lot of people are triggered by the trombone. I want to kind of hear more about that. Maybe we can dig into the effects pedal stuff in the bonus episode, because I'm super interested to know what you found useful.
Yeah, that would be
Absolutely.
Cool. I saw you have a live version from Mama Tried Sunset Park in Brooklyn of Black Skin, which I was watching earlier. That's powerful. And now that I know the backstory, it's like it makes sense. I mean, yeah, it's a gift for us, though, that you were able to turn like that kind of discomfort that I will never know for as long as I walk this earth into like such cool music, like it was, yeah, very, very neat. And it's cool to get to hear the backstory. And this is what great artists do, is that, yes, a lot of tricks and how to use pedals and effects and how to like layer things and like, but then there also has to be something to say there, right? Like, not that I'm sure every piece of art that you've ever made is as like as necessarily as poignant as that song is. But it's just like there's kind of like that combination of having something to say and then acquiring the skills over time to be able to make that, come into my headphones is cool.
Yeah, that's kind of where the trombone and like just it almost feels like journaling to a sense of our experiences and process. And thank you for checking out that Mama Tried video. Thank you for listening, I feel like it's our job as artists to share things that help other people or help other people feel and just get out of our own head, which is like the hardest thing. It's just getting out of our own head and spreading whatever thought it is. Even something as aggressive as feeling like racial discomfort or intensity, how do we then translate those things into, a story that isn't like we don't want to, the intention isn't to like push people away or anything like that. It's delivering a message and just getting out of the way of ourselves. Yeah.
Wow. Good
I
stuff.
like this slightly, not panicked, but just this kind of intense look on your face when I saw that you were getting an alert that your computer might die soon. And then just sort of seeing him source the cable and the charger and carry on a conversation as though like, no, this is all cool. Probably.
Yeah, it was like I had like the, when you start seeing the red, I'm like, oh.
The dialogue box pops up and goes, "No, dude, seriously." Like, it'd be pretty funny if he's able to layer guitars and synthesizers and his voice is trombone. He's like, but he can't remember to plug in his laptop.
Can't do it. Also, can't send emails about music. I sent an email out to a bunch of fans today, supporters, and apparently it like. I used one of those like MailChimp style things, and it like repeated the first name twice. Like Veronica is my partner's name. So she's like, Darius, you should let me edit these before. Like I can't.
I feel so close to you, Veronica, that I just like to call your name twice, just to remind you of how much you mean to me.
Exactly.
Well, the last thing that I want to, I just want to plug.
JoJo. It was like Jojo. Me.
It's JoJo.
It's Joe with the measure repeat with a 3 over it. Yeah, afterwards. There you go.
Hey.
I wanted to plug a very cool video that you made during the pandemic. By the way, you brought me back when you were talking about how Tom Hanks has COVID. Everybody's going home. I was doing an interview for a podcast that I was being interviewed. And when I got in there, the world is like, this is a little chaotic. And then when I plugged back in an hour later, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson had COVID and the NBA season had been canceled. That was all in like the 90 minutes that I was just talking to this person. I was like, what? Like my phone was like smoking when I pulled it back out. That was and you were out of the country. So, but this video is it's called Make a Song in 30-Minute Challenge, which is really cool. It's Darius has his dog in his lap, and I love that you say my dog doesn't stay on my lap very long, usually 30 minutes, and he like has a timer, and he like actually produces a song from absolute scratch. And I found it really fascinating. He starts with like singing like some falsetto, and then he's like clicking behind. He's like clicking. What is this called? Yeah, finger clicking. Finger clicking. That's what we call it in New England. That's totally not what we call it in New England. It's called snapping there and everywhere. Like and he isolates a snap and then he loops that. And it's like an 8.5 minute video because it's edited down. But it's really, really cool to watch. I highly recommend, because I don't know how to use any of the tools that he's using in that video at all. But it's neat. It's absolutely. We'll put that in the show notes as well, because it's cool. So check it out. But really check out the album. We need first of all, I bet you're gonna, if you've been interested in this conversation, you're gonna dig the album. I promise. But it's also just important to like support people like Darius who are making art, because it costs a lot of money, and all of the equipment that we can see there and the space that it is being housed in, like, whether that's rent or studio space or whatever, it all costs money. And if we want artists to keep making art, which I would say that we do, then especially like the people that are, that are still on their way up, which you're still very much ascending here, and there's a lot in front of you, but we got to make sure that the remaining chapters are all written. So go to Bandcamp and support him, please, if you are able. And Lance, is there anything else, or should we just?
I bought it.
I bought it too.
Oh,
right.
Gentlemen, thank
People
you.
to buy it.
Yep.
Gentlemen.
And so
He doesn't know us.
we are going to gentlemen. Yeah, we were full-time road musicians for many years. So I'm not sure if gentleman is the term you want to use there, but the screaming into a pillow in the van. But the
You want to go to lunch?
yeah. I was when you said you were in like San Francisco, I was picturing like he's in Subway eating in the window, and you're like across the street at like Quiznos in the window, and you're like looking at each other across the street as you're just like eating in silence.
Yeah.
That's a great story, man. That's a great story. So we're gonna
Hear
have
how
Darius.
loud I'm eating this sandwich right now. I'm eating this sandwich loudly.
We are going to have
loudly.
Darius stick around. Actually, I'm angry every time I eat Subway, too, but that's just because it's terrible. But moving right along, if you enjoy Subway, I apologize. No, I don't. We're going to have...
fresh.
We're going to have Darius stick around for the bonus episode, which if you are a Patreon patron of the Brass Junkies, then you know that every artist, including Joe Alessi, who was already named, and Jim Nova... And there's just a long Carol Yonch. There's a long list of people who have bonus episodes with us, and so you can check those out by going to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies, and you can make. Well, if you pay us a little bit of money, then we can pay it to people like Darius for making albums. So there you go. Although you should not. You should pay him first and then pay us if you have more money left over. And Darius, thank you for joining us. And
My
this has
pleasure.
really been a pleasure. No, it's
So good.
Yeah, really great. And that is going to do it for this episode of The Brass Junkies.
You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram, and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.